Overtired. So tired. Overtired.
Welcome back. You're listening to Overtired. I'm Christina Warren, joined as always by Brett Terpstra. Jeff Severance-Gunzel could not be with us today. We miss you, Jeff. Hope you're having fun with the family. So it's just a classic OG Overtired for once.
Yeah. Are you tired?
I was a little bit. So I went to bed. So we are recording this right now at 11 a.m. Pacific. So a little bit later than we usually record, but I went to bed around 4 a.m. Pacific. So
Oof.
I woke up originally. I did actually set an alarm. We were going to record at 10 and I set an alarm for 9:30. And I woke up and I hit snooze and I was about to text you and be like, I could really use another 30 minutes. And you had texted me literally that second asking for like 30 minutes or an hour. And I was like, perfect. And then I think I slept maybe 20 more minutes. And then I woke up and took
So
my pills
yeah,
and
you're
stuff.
tired.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
should be tired.
I should be, but I got like, 6 hours or so. So
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
I got 9 hours of sleep last night and I'm still dragging, but I think it's because for like 2 weeks now, I've gotten 6 hours of sleep every night.
Yeah.
And that kind of racks up over time. And then the night that you do sleep well,
Yeah.
then all the sleep deprivation like hits you the next day. I could barely
Right.
get out of bed this morning.
No,
Um,
totally. Yeah, I don't know if it's because of like medication switch or what, like, and it's a weird thing because the amount of dextrose I'm taking right now, I feel like is probably the right amount, but I don't know if I need to like, but this is what the hard thing is. Like I'm taking 15 milligrams. I probably need to maybe take it like twice a day. Like in terms of like maybe one half the day, but half the other. I don't know, but the 15 milligram will last me the whole day. The problem is it'll also like basically last me the whole night too. And so I'm at like,
I thought
you
I
know,
thought I thought it had a shorter half-life.
I don't know. It may be something in my
Huh.
biochemistry has changed.
Sure.
So, which is possible because like technically I could be taking 15 twice a day, but if I did that, I would not be sleeping. I might be more productive, but I wouldn't. Actually, I'm not even sure if I would be, but I would not be sleeping. So I'm kind of at like the weird place where I'm getting 5 or 6 hours a night, like pretty consistently. So, um, but yeah, and I need something to help me sleep, but
I feel
it
like
is
this
what it is.
segues nicely into a mental health corner.
I was gonna say we immediately went into mental health corner without even doing any chit chat. So
That's how mental health corner became the first thing on the show. Is we just always naturally were like,
right,
so
we
here's
just
what's wrong with me
here's what's
right
wrong with me
now.
this week. This is it was like doctor corner, and then we like colloquially called it like mental health corner, and then it became a thing. Yeah, that's true. That's true. We've been doing this show for so long now. I mean, like intermittently, but we've been doing it for so long that like yeah, this is how this happened. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to just finish mine because I don't have a lot?
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I haven't been sleeping super well, but it hasn't been bad either. I just need to kind of figure stuff out. I've been trying to clean my office. That has actually like that's a massive like mental health stressor because I have a bunch of boxes and stuff that I need to go through and I need to whatnot and we have like a storage unit and that we can put stuff in. My problem with that is that I'm like, okay, if I put this in the storage unit, I'm never going to see it again. And there is some stuff in here I would like to potentially use.
Are
But
you currently in the same room you usually podcast from?
yes.
Because from where I'm sitting, you're sitting in an empty white room
Yep.
like John Oliver during the pandemic.
Yep.
So I would say you're making progress on this
Oh
office
yeah, totally.
cleaning.
Yeah,
Okay.
without a doubt. I got rid of my shoe rack and put shoes that I will be using like in kind of like an area and then put some that are in boxes that I haven't worn that I might sell that I might do, potentially to go into storage. And then I threw a bunch out. But like there's a whole half of the room that you can't see that is just like boxes and stuff that I need to go through. And the easiest thing to do would be to just like pack it all up and put it in storage. But if I do that, I know I'm not going to go through it. And so it's just, I don't know, it's a really stressful thing of being like, okay, how do I get enough time to like basically have to kind of sift through and go through every single thing I have, feel like, keep storage, whatnot.
Do you have enough room to temper? Oh, you must, because it was there to begin with. So I'll tell you what I do and you can take it or leave it, but I like to put everything that I'm not currently using, everything that I don't have an immediate use for into a big pile of boxes.
Right.
And then over the next month, if I do need something, I go dig it out of the box and it becomes like a stay thing. If there's anything left in that box at the end of the month, I move it into a longer term storage, and basically anything I don't use in a year, I give away or
Hmm.
sell if possible. But like just like putting it all in storage and then pulling out what you actually
Yeah.
like, because you
Right.
can't
No, the
make that
problem.
decision in the moment.
No, but the problem is, and you're right, that is the right thing to do. The problem is I don't know exactly what I have.
Okay.
And so if I just put it in storage, then then that doesn't solve anything. And then like the problem is that there are things I know I have, I don't know where they are. I might rebuy
Okay.
them. Like that's the problem. So you're right. Like the way that you're talking about approaching things is correct. But like
I
I don't
do
know
have
what all
that
I have.
problem. I do have that problem of like forgetting that I already own something and buying it again because
Right.
I can't keep track.
Right. Well, I mean, I ran into that. I couldn't find a certain cable for something. And so I spent $70 on a freaking AC adapter for a Thunderbolt dock. And then, and this is like the shittiest thing, I found the newer version of the Thunderbolt dock.
Unboxed.
Yeah,
I mean,
completely
no,
unopened.
still boxed. Yeah.
Still boxed. Yeah, completely unopened. So, like, so I'm like, okay, well then why the fuck did I just spend $70 on this AT? All right, whatever. But like, but there's shit like that, right? Like I couldn't find a certain AC cable for my camera that I needed to plug in, so I bought another one. And then I literally found that when I was going through stuff. I was like, motherfucker, right? So there's stuff like that that it's just gonna take forever to go through. And that's just emotionally really taxing to
Sure.
even think about. And so and then if I have to like use my office for work related things, like then that is another complication. Like how the hell do I like find the time and the space to like do this and still have like a cleanish working environment? So it is what it is. But other than my hoarding and like organizational and executive function deficits, I'm doing pretty well.
All right. Yeah, I would say that leads me to a whole conversation about Facebook Marketplace, but um Elle is currently applying for additional part-time jobs and um, does not have the emotional capacity right now to deal with that and like working around the house and working in the garden and organizing her room. And yeah, I get that there are limits to like everything takes emotional energy.
Yeah,
Like, whether you realize it or not, you're investing emotion into everything, and things like cleaning are intense.
they are.
Like, even just, like, straightening up the house is an emotional journey for both Elle and me. Um, but so do you sell stuff on Facebook Marketplace?
No, but I should, because, I mean, I think that would probably be better than
Like,
eBay or other places.
yeah, I'm not sure, because I haven't Facebook Marketplace has always just been so convenient to get into that I haven't sold anything on eBay in a decade. But so Facebook Marketplace, if your post gets no traction in the first week, it expires your listing. So I have stuff like I have this PepLink router that you can plug in two different cable modem or at any two Ethernet sources from different ISPs into one router, and it does load balancing between the two ISPs, which is if
Nice.
you're running a business and you want 100%
Right.
uptime, you get two different ISPs and you plug it into this, and it's for people who need it, it's a perfect solution. And it is not the kind of thing that Facebook Marketplace excels at selling.
No.
Um, since I lost my job, I have been doing a better job of putting my huge pile of leftover shit on to Facebook Marketplace for sale. And so like I put up a pair of Echo Dots, like current generation, unopened, for $40 for the pair. And they retail at I think $30 a piece.
Right.
So it wasn't a huge deal, but
It's a good one.
Yeah, so it saves you 20 bucks, and those did not sell as a pair. People picked them up individually. I sold them 20 bucks a piece, and those sold in like a day. But I have an Echo Show
Mm-hmm.
also unopened that I got during a Prime Day when I was feeling impulsive,
Right.
and it it gets no interest. I marked it to like half of retail value, completely unopened, brand new, current version, and I cannot get even a single person interested in it. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a bike. Al has a bike that we're trying to sell, and its tires need to be replaced. Like they won't inflate anymore, but we don't have a bike rack that can get it to the bike shop. And I'm gonna have to actually buy the tools to replace a tire on my own because I haven't owned any of those since I used to race
Right.
mountain bikes. So nobody will buy it without being able to ride it, even though it's a $750 bike that we're offering for $250 barely used. And still people are like, well, I really need to see what it feels like.
Yeah, yeah, there's I mean, the thing is, I mean, it's convenient and I've never bought anything off of Facebook Marketplace, I don't think, but I know people who have and I that's probably what I'll use to try to sell some of my stuff, assuming, it'll be the sort of stuff people will want. Just because eBay is such a fucking pain and they take so much of and I don't even care about how much they take like at a certain point, but it's just like if it's such a pain, then it's gonna be like more effort than it's worth. Then at that point, I'm kind of like, well, I'm just gonna fucking, donate it or throw it away or give it to
Yeah.
Goodwill or whatever. You know what I mean?
And that
Um,
also is an emotional expense. Like putting it up for sale is an expense, dealing with people who want to buy it. It's like when you have a garage sale and people try to haggle on something that does
right.
have some sentimental value to you, or like you value it in a way that they don't, and you have to like concede to their preferences in order to make the sale. And again, it's all emotional energy. Selling stuff is hard.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's why usually I don't even fuck with it. I'm just like, fine, just get rid of it, just take it,
Yeah,
whatever.
I give so much away. I always before I put anything up for sale, I ask my friends because if a friend can use something I have and save me the emotional journey of dealing with buyers and actually transactions and all of that, and they'll just take it, that actually gives me like an emotional surplus. Like I
Right.
feel like I've done a good thing, I've helped somebody out, something I owned was helpful to somebody else. I feel good about that.
Hmm.
That's good. Selling stuff is a negative though.
Yeah, yeah, and then I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that it was fake, but there's I saw this very funny comedian bit um about Facebook Marketplace. This reminded me of it. I'll see if I can find a clip of it. It's like I think she was Australian. She might have been British. But she was like talking about like the most unhinged Facebook Marketplace story where somebody she was trying to sell like a bed and like a
Oh
bed
yeah.
frame.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I can't
yeah.
remember who it was, but that was
Yeah,
hilarious.
it is and
I
something like
actually I believe it. I think it could have been real.
maybe. I mean,
It seemed
a
believable.
lot of it seemed believable until the end story where going into like the wrong apartment. That was the part that like that didn't seem that I was like, okay, now I'm not actually sure about this.
All right,
Um,
well, we're gonna find it, and we're gonna
yeah,
share
we'll
it, but
find the clip.
we do not take responsibility for its veracity.
But it's very funny. I don't actually care if it's true or not. It's
Yeah,
funny enough,
right.
and the song is funny enough that I'm like, this is good. Like I don't actually care. Um, all right, how are you doing? How's your mental health?
All right, well, I am my severance runs out this week. Um, I'm not broke by any means yet, but, uh, once my severance runs out, then I should be eligible for unemployment,
Hmm.
but I have this major, like, emotional blockade to applying for unemployment. Like, part of me is just dreading finding out I can't get unemployment. I already have contingency plans. I know what I'm doing, next, but it's still, like, it's a fear of rejection that's
Right.
keeping me from doing it.
And I
Um,
understand that. I would, like, point out, like, as much as it would suck, like, if it will be, because I don't know how much Minnesota gives, but I think they offer a pretty
It
decent
would be like
amount.
4 to 600 a week.
Right. That I think if you can like frame it in your head that like that is worth like the risk of finding out if they've rejected it or not.
Yeah.
Did you
Oh,
talk?
yeah.
Did you talk to a lawyer before
Yeah.
all this and they didn't have
Yeah.
an answer for you?
No.
No.
No. So Shopify said they were going with a more qualified candidate, and if I wanted any feedback, they were available next week, and this is last week. And I said, "Sure, I would be interested in feedback so I can, better myself for future
Hmm.
applications." They never replied to that email. And then 2 days later, the job I applied for showed back up on LinkedIn, which leads me to have all kinds of dark thoughts about they must have contacted Oracle, and Oracle did something to disqualify me. And like, if it weren't for that, I would have had the job because they had no other
Right.
candidates. So I emailed them I was just like, "Hey, I saw this job come back up. Is it the one I've already been passed over for, or is it something else I can apply for?" And I never got a reply to that either. So I have fears. I'm worried about what that means for my hireability in other places, which makes me completely reticent to continue with the job hunt. I'm still sending out resumes because that's easy to do. Um, don't know if I want to go through another like 4-hour interview process and not get a job. And like, my independent coding is going really well, and I really think there's a lot of potential for just being independent at this point. And I figured out how to have like 401k and health insurance and all of this as an independent developer. And the only thing keeping me from wholeheartedly pursuing that is that it scares L, and those conversations are difficult. They're very emotionally charged, and I get very defensive very quickly.
Right. Right. I mean,
Um,
and I can see both sides of that. I can see your side obviously in that like you're like, I think this is viable. This is going to, help me. I will be happier. I will be more productive. I can potentially make more money or as much,
mhm,
doing this. And but I also see their perspective, which is, we need reliable income
mhm,
and they remember potentially like what things were like before.
yeah,
And in that case, it wasn't always, reliable, in some ways, and so I can see both of those perspectives. I feel like I will just give you from what I've observed from my friends who've gone through job hunts and just even myself going through interview processes at places where I didn't ultimately end up taking jobs. Um, Unfortunately, the if you're going to go with like a even smaller places at this point, like bigger places, the process is going to be the same process you went through at Shopify. It's not going to. I mean, period. Like even if you have an in, even if it feels like it's a guaranteed thing, it's a slog. And I have friends who are actively seeking jobs right now, and it does become almost a full time job to apply for other jobs, right? Like that's like it becomes a whole thing, and it's shitty and it's bad, but like that's like ideally, I think what a lot of people like try to like, you know, optimize their either, when they're being paid for unemployment or if they have severance, from another place or whatever, they try to optimize their time for that, for interview prep and for, leak coding exercises depending on what they're doing and for, outreach and that sort of thing. So I think that like the loop thing and then multiple rounds is unfortunately going to be, at least at bigger places, is just going to be a reality. Smaller places might be different. In terms of whether or not Oracle has blacklisted you or something, my gut says that Shopify would not be able to get that information until they were going to extend you an offer. And so I don't think that happened in this case if after the formal round. Like usually they would extend you a verbal offer, and that's when the background check process would start, where they would
mm,
contact your former employer to verify employment and maybe to verify other things. They're not supposed to be able to ask about anything else. Like that's not supposed to be a thing that's allowed. Um, and now if people know people, places, and they ask questions, that's different, obviously. But like, that's not supposed to be a thing that happens, especially if you weren't like hired for, like, if you weren't like, fired for, like committing a crime or something. Like, and even then, I'm not even sure if that is information that they're allowed to share, to be honest with you. And so, but like if you've been embezzled or something, right? Like I feel like if that would come up maybe on a criminal background check, but usually I don't even know if they would be able to, if employers would be able to, like past employers would be able to share that sort of information. So I don't know why they pulled the job and then relisted it. It's possible that they found out that from the candidates they got, they just didn't find people that they wanted for whatever reason, and then they relisted in hopes of getting different candidate set. I have no idea. But I feel like the only way that you would, just if it makes you feel any better, that would have them be like, "Oh, we blacklisted Brett," would be if they just happen to know someone who knew the details. And
Yeah,
and that
that's the
feels
thing though,
and
is
that and that feels right,
there
and
are
that
only
feels
2 people at Oracle who would say anything bad about me.
right, and so that
Um,
makes me think that that's not what happened.
yeah, I wish they would just, like, be transparent and tell me what was up. Like, I'm not gonna sue anybody,
You wouldn't be able to.
unless they had some protected reason that they admitted to.
Right.
um, we didn't hire you because we found out you're pansexual, then yeah, that'd be a problem. But I imagine that's not the reason. So yeah, anyway, can I tell you about rhubarb salsa?
Yeah, absolutely. Should we do our sponsor read first?
Should we? What time is it?
It's 24 minutes in.
Okay, yeah, perfect time.
Do
Would
you want
you
me to do
like
it?
to do the read?
I
Yeah,
absolutely
go for
will.
it.
Today's episode is sponsored by Insta360, a leader in 360-degree action camera technology. Their latest 360-degree camera, Insta360 X5, launched April 22nd, and it shoots full 360-degree videos in incredible 8K 30 frames per second resolution. Since it films in all directions at once, you don't even need to aim the camera. Just hit record, live in the moment, and choose any angle you want in the edit with Insta360's mobile app. It's easy, smooth, and packed with AI tools for faster workflow. From immersive POVs to unique third-person shots, X5 is every camera you'll need in one. X5 also includes Insta360's toughest ever lenses with drop resistance capabilities. The lenses are completely replaceable, so you can risk the shot with confidence. The X5 is also waterproof with IP68 waterproofing to 49 feet and the invisible dive case for seamless 360-degree stitching to 197 feet. To bag a free 114-centimeter invisible selfie stick worth $24.99 with your Insta360 X5 standard package purchase, head over to store.insta360.com and use the promo code OVERTIRED, available for the first 30 standard package purchases only. For more information, be sure to check out the link in our show notes. Once again, that is store.insta360.com. Use the promo code OVERTIRED. Thanks, Insta360, for your support of the show.
Yeah, thank you. Um, okay, so rhubarb salsa.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of rhubarb. We're probably going to grow our own rhubarb, but right now we get a CSA, and one of the things that we're getting in that, do you know what a CSA is?
I don't.
I can't remember what it stands for, but it's basically you pay a farm or a farmer a set price, and they give you a bundle of whatever's in season that week. And every week you get a big bag full of greens and root vegetables and eggs and just like everything that a farm produces. And you don't always know what you're going to get. The one we're doing right now, you can go in at the beginning of the week and there's like a checkbox. You can like choose, here's what's available. You choose what you want. One of the things we've been getting is rhubarb, and I love a good like rhubarb strawberry crumble. It's one of my favorite desserts, but we needed something else to do with the rhubarb. So Elle made rhubarb salsa, which involves rhubarb and jalapenos and green peppers. And I'm not even sure what else, but then you ferment it for like a week and you get this kind of fizzy spicy, sweet salsa out of it. And it like the first bite I had of it, my brain just lit up. I was like, "Oh my God." Um, the last time that happened to me was when we made soy what was it? It was like whitefish sauteed in a soy sauce, like maple syrup mixture and orange juice, and then with a wasabi mayo and a mango salsa topper in corn tortillas. So it was like a taco. And
Nice.
the first bite I had, I was manic at the time I had that. So I was already like my brain was lighting up like crazy. And then I had a bite of that and it was like fucking doing cocaine. It was just insane. So no, I'm stable. And I had a bite of this salsa and immediately my brain was like, yes, this is it. So last night we had chipotle black bean tacos with mango, with like a lime crema and then this rhubarb salsa on top of it. And oh my God, it was so good. I I had I would never have thought, you know what we should do with this rhubarb is make a spicy taco salsa, and it worked out so well. I was amazed.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Do you do much cooking?
No, no.
No.
But I mean, I aspire to maybe one day be in the place where I actually, I don't know. No, I don't.
That's
I
just
don't.
that's not you.
Yeah, it's not. Um, yeah, it's not me. But I like people who do. Like, it's weird because I like to like watch like cooking shows and hear about people
Yeah,
who cook
me too.
stuff. But like, I have zero interest in actually doing it myself. The like the things that I am interested in and like the time that I have to do stuff is just like there are too many other things that I prioritize more. But I enjoy like watching people who are really into it. I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like it's not my thing,
I
but like that's really cool for others.
I love cooking shows. I have a subscription that I got as a birthday present to Cooks Illustrated, which I read like it's a fucking hustler. And it's food porn. It's all food porn. I have multiple YouTube subscriptions to chefs. And even when I am at a phase of my life where I'm practicing vegan, I still like watching like cooking shows that deal with a more of an omnivore diet. And even if I'm not going to eat the stuff, I love watching the techniques and I love watching food be transformed into dishes. Um, our corn, we're growing corn. It's like 8 inches tall now, and the farmer's almanac saying is always knee high by the 4th of July, and I think we might make it. Um, and our squash, so behind me in this room, I don't think you could. Right there, can you see that little sprout right there?
A little bit. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's blurry, but we're sprouting squash plants in my office that will be transplanted probably today out into the garden. I think I've talked about the Three Sisters planting method on this show before, but so basically you have corn and then you plant beans and the beans grow up the corn and then you plant squash and the squash protects the roots from the sun, the big leaves of the squash plant do. So like the three different plants are kind of synergistic in their growth cycle. So we're doing that in a 4x6 raised bed. I'm pretty excited about it, just like seeing it all come together. But yeah, so I'm going to be doing a lot of cooking and we have so many tomato plants, and I don't really like tomatoes, but when I grow things myself, I like them better. So I'm look. I've had Elle's been sauteing up some cherry tomatoes that have been just good enough to like just eat, just pop in your mouth and just eat. Um, Sweet and acidic at the same time. Anyway, okay, sorry, I went off on a rant. I did want to talk to you about Magic Mike.
Yes.
You mentioned to me last week when I was on my kick of like Stick It and Bring It On and um, Pitch Perfect and all of that. You mentioned Magic Mike and Step Up, all the Step Up movies.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had seen Magic Mike. I think I had seen XXL. I had never seen The Last Dance. And we also talked about movie bundles last week.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went looking on iTunes, because I couldn't find it on any of my friends' Plexes, I went on iTunes and there was sure enough a bundle for the Magic Mike trilogy. So I just bought it and I watched them all. And the first one has a ton of heart.
Yeah,
And
it's great.
like not only was it just amazing dance moves, it was like dramatic and I had an emotional response to it. XXL and The Last Dance were good insofar as they had great dance moves, great choreography, great acting, but they didn't have the heart for me
Right.
that the first one had. And before the show, you were talking about how you saw, I think you were talking about XXL,
Yeah.
the second one. You saw it in a theater with a bunch of people who were really into it.
Yes.
Tell me
Yes.
about that.
Okay. So, gosh, I guess this was a decade ago, and whenever it came out, and I saw it. It wasn't even the first week that it was out. I think it had already been out, and this is what was impressive because it did really well at the box office. Especially for a sequel and a fairly, not like a super high budget thing either. Like the first movie was a big surprise hit because it was kind of like this dumb, you know, like concept, and you're like, what do you mean? Like it's about this guy who's like a male stripper and doing
Yeah.
the dancing thing. Like what do you mean we're doing this? And it's like loosely based off of like Channing Tatum's own experiences. And then you're like, and it's Steven Soderbergh, and you're like, why in the hell is Steven Soderbergh making a movie like this? Right? Like this is like, the Ocean's 11 guy and like like the Out of Sight guy. Like this is like a big time, like, respected like artistic director. Like what the fuck is he doing? And then to your point, it's great. It has heart. Like the dancing was awesome. Like it was just like this complete surprise. And then the sequel, I loved. I didn't like it more than the original, but I really, really liked it. It's essentially the same movie as Pitch Perfect 2, but I prefer it to Pitch Perfect 2 a ton. And I think part of it, when I look back on it, was I was telling you this before we started recording. I saw it in New York City, like at a theater in Chelsea, on like a Wednesday or a Thursday afternoon. Like I said, it wasn't even release week, and I went with my coworker Heidi, and the theater was pretty full, and it was almost all women, and everybody was like so into it, like into it, like we were all cheering and we were just having like the best time. And it was one of those movie experiences, like I look back on it, I'm like, man, that was really cool, because you don't expect, I didn't expect, especially like in New York City, like it wasn't even like a suburban like kind of theater. It was like, it was just like a local kind of neighborhood theater, and it was just like an afternoon like show. It was like 6 o'clock. It was like, we went directly after work. It wasn't one of those things that you would expect there to be a lot of people there. Even back then, like now, you definitely wouldn't expect a lot of people at the movie theater. But even back then, I was like surprised, like so many people were in the theater. And in the audience, though, we just had like the time of our lives, like with all the dance sequences, and when they're going to the various parties, at the like fraternities and stuff. Like it was just really, really fun. And so I don't know, for me, like that heightened that experience so much that I was like, man, I don't even know if I've watched it since then, to be honest with you. But I also bought the iTunes bundle. But I was just like, man, this was a great movie. I had a great time watching this, and I had, I think, seen some of the dance sequences again. But I was like, man, I just had like the time of my life. The third one, it was good. It wasn't the same, but I also didn't see it in the theater. And at that point, so much time had passed between like the second and the third one that I feel like,
The
some of
third
them,
one really tried to have heart.
it did. And
It really
Soderbergh came back for
tried
that
to
one.
be dramatic, and it didn't hit me the way the first one
No.
did.
And that's hard, right? Like you almost never do, right? Like, I mean, in all honesty, the fact that we're talking about like genuinely saying that there are 3 Magic Mike movies, and that the first one is really good, and I really like the second one as well, but the third one, like none of them are bad,
Mm.
is actually hysterically like, that's this should not be an actual conversation that we're genuinely having, where we're like, no, you can actually watch all three of these movies and they're pretty good, right? Because usually how these sorts of things would work historically would be you have one that's really good, and then you maybe have a sequel that's okay, and then by the time you get to the end, we're at like direct
It's
to
just a cash
video.
grab at that
It's a
point.
cash grab and it's terrible, right? And like it wouldn't even be a thing where you'd be like, yeah, it's worth your time. And this is one where I would be like, no, I mean it's not going to be the greatest thing you'll ever see, but it's got some heart and it's a solid ending. You know, they also at that point like they were doing like the Vegas show and things like that, right? So it became this franchise, which is wild again because I remember when that movie came out in like 2011, I think it was 2011, 2012. And like all of us, we were A, shocked that Soderbergh was making this movie, and then B, you know, that it was this hit. And then C, like when I look at it, I'm like, this like launched this whole fucking franchise of other things. And you're like, okay, you know, who would have thought like this movie that like was kind of a punchline, you know, for like film
Yeah.
snob types, like became like an
So,
actual franchise.
right. So let's talk about the difference that we'll say audience participation makes. Um, so like if you were a kid today and someone said you should see Rocky Horror Picture Show,
Mm-hmm.
and you loaded it up on Netflix or wherever it is, and you watched it in a room on your own, you'd be like, all right, it's kind of kitschy, it's kind of funny. I okay, I don't
Right.
understand but if you see it at like
Live.
a small theater with a crowd that knows all the songs and
Yes.
participates, holy shit, you walk out of there going, "Oh my god, this might be the greatest movie ever made." I
Right.
saw I saw The Blair Witch Project at a small theater in Minneapolis as a pre-release. It hadn't come out yet.
Wow.
Nobody knew it was fake
Wow.
yet.
Oh
And so
man.
I'm in there with a crowd of people who are they're movie lovers and they're
Mm-hmm.
there to see a movie. And there was a woman next to me, like the scary part, she was like grabbing my knee, like without thinking about it, just like so scared, like just freaking out. And the whole audience, like audible gasps, like people like just like freaking out through the movie. And it changed it. Like it was like when I first saw it, I was like, oh my God, this might be like the best horror movie I've ever seen. And then I watched it years later alone in a room, and it was
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
It
But
but
that
like
moment when
audience
you did,
participation, when you're in a theater, it's same with going to a Star Trek movie or a Star Wars movie
yep.
in the theater versus watching it at home on Netflix.
No, totally.
Huge, or on Disney Plus, whatever, a huge
Right.
difference.
Oh, no, totally, totally. And it's interesting you say that about Blair Witch because I remember when that came out, they ran this, I don't know if it was on Sci-Fi Network, it was on something. They ran on cable this, and it turned out that it was like a you know, a whole like campaign thing. And I guess they made it clear that it was promo for the movie, but we didn't really know that then. And I remember watching it and we all thought it was like, oh, The Legend of the Blair Witch. I think that's what it was called. And it was before the movie came out. And we all thought it was real. And so it got people hyped for the movie. It was like, holy shit, they found this documentary footage. We all have to go see this movie.
Yeah.
By the time I saw the movie, which was like a day or two later, you know, it was already out that the whole thing was fake. And I still had fun when I saw it in the theater, but it was lessened, right?
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
wasn't it
Yeah.
wasn't the same thing. Like I remember because I was like 15 or 16 when that movie came out. And so I was like really hyped to see it. And that was like that summer, there were just amazing movies. That's probably one of the best movie years ever was the Blair Witch year and 1999. And like genuinely, like I think there was even a book about it, but like that is like one of like the best movie years ever, ever, ever. And like you had The Sixth Sense that year and you had Fight Club and you had American Beauty and you had like there were like so
Kinda
many.
like, I think it was 94, 95 for hard rock when, like, all the Use Your Illusions
Yeah,
and the Metallica's Black Album
exactly.
and AC, like, everyone, yeah, all
Yeah.
within, like, a year, yeah.
Yeah. No, like the 1999 movie year was like a goated year. But Blair Witch was like this phenomenon, right? And I that would have been so cool to see that like pre-release before any of that, where like you think that it's real, like with people who are really into it. Because when I saw it in the theater, like people were into it. But, at this point, I'd already been spoiled. The internet, was only, the web was only a few years old at this point, but I'd already been spoiled, like, by the internet that it was fake from, like, the movie forums. And, like, I think that maybe regular people who were seeing it, it hadn't quite, like, passed on to them yet. Like, I don't think it was quite, like, on the radio yet that, like, "Oh, yeah, this is
Not
fake,"
not
because
terminally online people, yeah.
right, and I already was terminally online even though I was, like, on freaking 56K dial-up, um, because we, didn't live in an area that could get cable yet, but, like, it was but it yeah, so it wasn't the same thing, but that would've been so cool, and, you're right, like, a mediocre movie can be made infinitely better with a good theatrical experience, and a good movie can also be made, like, significantly better, right? And the inverse is true too, like, a good movie can be weakened if you have a bad crowd. Like, I remember
Mhm.
seeing Castaway, and which is a good movie, but that movie, there's, like, a big portions of it that are silence, and for some reason, there was, like, some, like, parents who had, like, some two-year-old child with them in the movie who kept
Mm.
talking throughout the whole thing, and, like, here's the thing, I'm sort of sympathetic to parents at movies, sort of, meaning this is a R-rated, like, film that, like, in my opinion, like, fuck you. Like, I don't give a shit if you can't find a babysitter, like, there are 200 other people who paid money to be there, like, I don't actually give a shit, like, especially opening weekend, like, fuck off. And they were rude about it, like, because the thing is, like, because I've, had to take kids to movies before, and, like, if they're gonna cause a disturbance, then the correct move is you walk out, like, that's what you do. Like, you walk out of the
Mhm.
theater, and you calm them down, and then if you come back in, you do, and if not, that's just the breaks, like, it's shitty, like, parents don't at me, but, like, it's not my responsibility that you, like, made the decisions that you made, right? Like, there's a social contract, in my opinion. If it's a kid movie, it's different, but if it's not a kid movie, like, whatever. Anyway, this kid, like, talked and was crying and was being, a kid, like,
Yeah,
throughout
that
the
would
entire
ruin
like,
it.
large chunks of the movie. And actually, I will never forget this because one of the funniest things happened at the end when, like, the credits come up, this family's kind of, like, leaving or whatever, and they waited. Like, if it were me, I would have gotten out of that movie theater as fast as humanly possible just to, like, avoid anything, and they almost seemed proud. But somebody called out, "Next time, use a condom." And it which is still to this day, like, one of the greatest, like, and everybody applauded, like, when that happened, like, everybody literally in the theater, like, applauded. And
Mm.
that still is, like, one of the funniest, like, moments I've ever witnessed. Next time, use a
I
condom.
I don't remember what movie it was, but I was in the theater and I was in the second section, and someone in the second row from the top of the first section was texting on their phone, and it had a really bright screen, and
Yeah.
everyone was grumbling about it, and eventually I yelled something like, "Jesus Christ, shut your fucking phone off," and the whole theater applauded. At least everyone behind this person was like,
Yeah.
"Yes."
Well, because that's the thing, right? Like, it's one of those things, it's like, people don't realize, yeah, how bright screens are and that will completely distract, like, the experience.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
funny because, I'm talking about how, like, movies are better when you see them with people, which is true. But the inverse is also true. And this is kind of why, like, movie theaters are struggling is that so many people have had bad experiences where people are texting or people are talking or people are drunk or people are, they have their
Sure.
kids or whatnot.
And you
And then
can completely avoid that at
and you
home.
can at home, but you also miss out on those magical experiences of, like,
Mhm.
80, 90 people, watching Magic Mike on a Thursday, literally, like, women, like, very happy, and we were, like, in our, 20s, 30s, older, right? Like, it wasn't, like, teenage girls, like, this was, like and it wasn't, like, college crowd, these were, like, people who, like, had left work, and, like, come and gone to the movies, at, like 5
Yeah.
or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Like, this wasn't the sort of crowd that you would kind of expect that sort of thing one, which was awesome. And that can make it or, going to like a midnight, premiere of a big, now I think it's less of a thing just because there've been so many of them. But I mean, I will say this. I saw Endgame, the final, Avengers movie until they do like their reboots or whatever. I saw that in were we in Sweden? We were in Stockholm and, my, one of my colleagues, they got us all tickets. There were like 10 of us who were there, for a work thing, and there were Swedish subtitles, but it was in English. and like made like t-shirts for us. So we all had like, kind of like Avengers or Marvel themed like shirts. And like it wasn't like Swedish movie theaters, at least the one we went to, like are not as nice as like the big US multiplexes, but it was still a nice experience. But like everybody, like it was opening day, like had the time of their life. And
Really?
I will never forget like watching like the final big like Marvel movie like in another country, with like a
Yeah.
whole
No,
freaking thing. Like that was
that's
so cool.
interesting. That's interesting. So I watched Endgame at home with my partner, and it was like a remote group watch with Elle's sister, and I fell asleep. Like that movie to me was overdrawn, full of too many inside references, just kind of a travesty. But to that end, do you remember the hype around the Star Wars prequels before the first one came
Oh
out?
yeah. Oh yeah. No,
Um,
I do, because I was a
so
hater. I was a big hater.
I don't know if you're familiar with the fact that punk rockers are generally nerds.
Yeah.
And when so I was in Minneapolis when the first prequel came out, and the lead singer of my band, who he was a dangerous, dangerous person who everyone was scared of, but he had a big Rebel Alliance logo on the back of his punk rock spike jacket. And he led the charge to get about 200 punk rockers to pitch in money to rent out a whole small theater
Oh my
for the
gosh.
release of the first
Of
prequel.
of episode 1.
And
Wow.
yeah, and we both know it was not good.
No, it was
Like,
not.
it was full, but when you're in a room full of nerds who
Yes.
have that kind of hype built up, and they're
Oh no,
there
you're gonna think that it's
because they want to love it,
right.
and
It's gonna be the crash comes the next day. The crash
yep,
comes the next day when
exactly,
and
exactly.
you go, "What the fuck was this? Why was this Jar
Yep,
Jar Binks puppet there?
yep.
This child actor is terrible." Like this whole thing is, and
Yes,
like it, for
there was a
me,
lot of talk in the
yeah,
community after that.
yeah. For me, my big takeaway was because I didn't expect the movie to be good because I didn't really think the prequels were that good, and I was like deep into my a film snob phase. And look, I was correct. The prequels were trash, and I saw all of them. But like, it was one of those things where all my friends wanted to go, so I had to go. And then I remember like watching, and I was like, why in the fuck would Natalie Portman do this to her career? Which is honestly still a question I have, right? I'm like,
Sure.
it didn't derail anything. She's so talented, but like she's literally the most talented actress like of her generation. Like in terms of a sheer talent perspective, in my opinion, I think Natalie Portman is the most talented. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? But at the moment, I mean, I think I was a hater, so I don't think that I was like that enamored with episode 1, but I saw it at midnight with, people, and like, and it's infectious, right? Like I even saw, God, what was it? I went to the world premiere of Batman versus Superman at Radio City Music Hall. And like, the cast is there and the whole thing. And like, and it was, this, and Radio City is a huge, huge venue, especially like if you use it as a movie theater. And even then, because of, you're with like however many, hundreds of people, might have been a few thousand, I'm not sure. Um, you're probably a few thousand. You're hyped on it. You're like, okay, all right, Zack Snyder, I'm in. And it wasn't until like the car ride like back that I was like starting to think, but I was like, well, okay, I like Jesse Eisenberg, but like so much of this didn't make sense. And then like then the next day I'm like, oh yeah, no, this was hot garbage. But like at the time, like they kind of get you. Like
Yeah.
if you're not, thinking critically, and I look back at that experience, I'm not mad I saw the movie in the theater. Especially the way that I did. Um,
Yeah, no,
but
going to
the
the
same way,
theater is fun. It doesn't even if the movie's shitty,
oh
like,
yeah.
and often if it's really shitty and the group experience is everyone's pissed off, it's still fun because
Oh,
you're part of
totally.
a group and you're
Well,
having like it's like going to
well,
a soccer game where your team loses. It's still
totally.
fun.
Totally. Well, I saw Francis Ford Coppola's, movie Megalopolis in the theater with my friend Colin, back in, like, October, and there were only a few of us in the theater, and we got in trouble because we talked during, like, the previews, and I was like, "Okay," like, and I'm like, "Fuck off," like, I'm gonna talk during the previews, it's not a
For
big deal.
real.
but we didn't like talk, but like the movie itself, and we didn't get like a special guest like during our screening or whatever, which some cities did, which is fine. But like it's this long ass movie and it's fucking weird as hell. When the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, I cannot wait to watch this high out of my mind, because if this is this like bizarre, like stone sober, like I can't wait to see this in another setting. But it is one of those things where I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think, I mean, look, I actually really respect the fact that Francis Ford Coppola was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do with my money and my legacy. I'm going to spend $100 million plus of my own money on this. And it's interesting. Like, I'm glad the film was made. It is not a good movie, but I'm glad that films like that exist, right? Like, I'm glad that he did what he did. And I think it takes balls to just be like, and I also really respect the fact that like his kids were in no way not supportive. Like they were like, "It's your money, Dad. Do it," right? Because there are a lot of kids who be like, "Dad, that's our future." Don't spend $150 million of your money, because the studio looked at it and they were like, "This is insane. We're not going to pay for this." But and yeah, but like some of the acting performances were actually really good. The disappointing thing is that like Jon Voight, who I've never seen give a good performance ever, was actually good. So was Shia LaBeouf. So like the two most canceled people like in the movie actually gave like the two best performances, which is, it is what it is. But like it was a weird and kind of bizarre movie, and it's long as all get out. But I was just like, I'm so glad I'm seeing this in a theater with like my friend and like three like octogenarians, because those were the only like five of us who were like watching this movie like when it came out. And it was funny because we had a choice. We could see that or Joker 2. And man, did we choose correctly. Because Joker 2, I tried to watch in a hotel, like after it was out for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then it came to HBO, and I fell asleep like 25 minutes
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't with this. Like as soon as they started singing, I was like, oh, okay, so this is real, real, real fucking bad.
Yeah.
It wound up having like literally like one of like the longest running number one hit songs ever, which is funny. The Lady Gaga Bruno Mars song, which I don't even like, but like man, that movie was a colossal flop. I feel like even in the theater, that would be one of those scenarios where I'd be like, no, you know what? I have better things to do with my time. But Megalopolis, no, I didn't. And I'm incredibly grateful that I got to see that in the theater
I
with
never
like
saw
five
that.
people.
I never
Yeah,
saw
I
it.
mean, and I can't necessarily recommend it.
Yeah, it
Certainly
sounds like
not
maybe
sober.
not the way I want to spend an evening. Although
No,
I have mushrooms. I
yeah,
could
do you
have
have
fun with
okay.
it.
Honestly, like under like the like like high or on mushrooms or something, I could definitely see it being certainly interesting. Because the thing
Okay.
is like it has some interesting ideas. It's about like this idea. It kind of takes place like in this futuresque kind of world, and this kind of builder, this great guy who's wanting to kind of like he's trying to like chase, I think, like a former love. I don't remember all the story, but like it's like a more modern, like futuresque, like Roman Empire type of situation, but yet it takes place, but like Rome is now New York, and there's magical kinds of stuff. I don't know. It's a weird fucking movie, but but the acting is actually good, and the story is bizarre, and the special effects stuff is weird, but like Aubrey Plaza is in it. She's really good. Chloe Fineman
I
from
love
SNL is
her.
in it. She's really good.
I love her.
Adam Driver, who is always good, but like he's,
Love him.
other thing, like it's a really good cast. And obviously everybody shows up because they're like, well, it's Francis Ford Coppola, even if this is a shit
Yeah.
show, I will
Right.
work with
Right.
him. And like that's, I would love to see like a true like behind the scenes like documentary, like oral history of how that movie was made, because it took like 30 years. He'd been trying to get it made for forever, and everybody was like, no. And then finally he was like, well, fuck you, I'll sell my vineyard and I'll just do it myself. Okay, you know what, man? Like you gave us The Godfather and The Conversation, and like like you gave us so much cinema that like Apocalypse Now, like you can be a fucking weirdo. Like I'm good with that. So
So speaking of recommending movies,
mhm.
are there any good when I've been watching a ton of movies lately, and some nights I'm like, I wish I could find a movie like that had
Yes.
the same hit as X, and
Yes.
not X, but like as
I know what you
blank.
mean.
And I have not found a decent app for even related movie recommendations, let alone like, I would love an app where it gave me a list and I was like, yes, I like this. No, I don't like this. And it came out and would give me decent recommendations. I have not found an app that gives me anything I actually want to watch yet.
I feel like I'm sure there are probably a million things like that, but it's funny you say that because that's actually a thing that I've been vibe coding for me and some of my friends is
Oh,
like a
yeah?
movie and TV show recommender. And so what we've been doing is basically like because a lot of times like we have a group chat that there's like 14 or 15 of us in it, and that are people are intermittently like active, but like people will recommend like TV shows or movies or whatever, and a lot of us have similar tastes. And so I was like, okay, well, we need to have a way where we can like basically, each add our recommendations and like say who recommended it. And then I was playing around with some AI stuff and I was like, well, put in like similar to shows. And I will say, at least so far, I mean, I don't think it's like a perfect thing to do what you're doing, but like when kind of the thing that I've been vibe coding has actually shown me like pretty decent similarity stuff, right? Now, I think the cool thing would be like, so it's like if I enter in like the pit, then you might also like, TV shows like ER or, Grey's Anatomy or whatever. Or if you liked, the studio, you might like, Hacks or Broad City or, and some other types of shows, kind of comedy things that in that vein. I don't know how deep it goes. I feel like that would be the thing that would be really, really good, but, that's something I'll look into, if I
I
ever get this
think
app in a state that I can share it more broadly.
I think what I would be interested in, and it's entirely possible that nobody has tagged movies in this respect, but I would be interested in movies that had the same vibe. Not the
Yes, and
same subject material,
no,
but the
totally.
same, like, vibe, like, it's gonna make me feel a
Right.
way similar. So, like, I ended up watching Neighbors and Neighbors 2,
I love those
the
movies.
movie. Yeah, they're good, and ultimately, like, they're just funny. They're not they have no, like,
No.
dramatic emotional impact,
No, no,
but
no,
they're
they're just
funny,
they're good to have on the background.
and I was looking for another movie like that where it's just stupid frat boy humor
Yep.
and what's his name? What's the main character? The actor, not
That Seth Rogen?
Seth Rogen. Yeah, like that kind of like Seth Rogen kind of
Yeah,
feel, maybe without Seth Rogen.
right.
Um, and that is really hard to like qualify.
Mhm.
And I don't know if there's like even a database you could access that was like,
There
here
probably
are,
are. Oh, I'm sure there are. I'm sure that like Rotten Tomatoes and like IMDb, which their API is like they price it specifically that they don't want people to use it. I don't know how well people have used like the movie database for things like that. I'm sure people
yeah,
have done
the
stuff.
the movie database actually, their API is solid.
It
And if you
is, and
could
that's what I'm
scrape
using
that
for my
kind of info out of it,
right. That's what I'm using for my like share a show thing.
yeah, I
And
built TMDB into SearchLink and it is so much better and more accessible than IMDb.
yeah, IMDb has better data, but the pricing, like it's one of those things where like you have to call to basically get a price and have like a Amazon like level like service agreement. Like it is not a thing. Like you could scrape it, I guess, but like it is not like in terms of doing it from an
Yeah,
API level. Like they don't want you to use it. Is really what it comes down to.
yeah.
But like I'm sure that like Rotten Tomatoes and other things, like I'm sure that they have that stuff. I just doubt that they want to make it accessible. But I'm sure there are people who've built sentiment analysis things based on movies. Oh, you know what would actually be the perfect thing to use for this? And I don't know if they have an API. I'm going to check this right now. Letterboxd. Letterboxd is the thing that would be the best way
Yep, yep, they would
to
have
do
that
this.
information.
Because yep, there is an API. And so
Interesting.
I don't know exactly like what it all has, but they do have an
Yeah,
API because that would be
I
the
built
thing.
a I built a really simple movie search using Letterboxd API, but I never dug into anything close to sentiment analysis or reviews or anything like that.
Yeah, because I bet that I mean, because if anybody was gonna do like if there was any place that you could trust for that, like that would be the thing, right? Where if there are users you follow or things that you like, because that to me would be way better than like whatever aggregate data like Rotten Tomatoes has. It would be, polling people who put something like on their list and if people liked it or didn't like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like that would be the thing that if you were able to plug into that, I'd be like, okay, if enough people who watch this movie also watch this one and like it, then you can see that there is correlation because usually there is, right? Like that was kind of how like the musical genome thing project worked with things like Last FM and stuff like that was that they were able to, show, yeah, there is a certain correlation for these things. And
Yeah.
um not always. And you can kind of get stuck into a rut of just like, this is kind of Spotify's problem a little bit of like just like listening to everything sounds the same. But at the same time, I will say my Spotify recommendations, for instance, are uh, it's embarrassing how much better they are than Apple Music's, for example. Like Apple Music's, and
Sure.
and I listen to more music on Apple Music actually, and so Apple Music should have a better way to recommend things to me, and they don't.
Mhm.
All they do is just
Yeah.
re-recommend
No,
things that I've already
Spotify
listened to.
kicks Apple
Where
Music's ass for
and
that.
they always have, but I mean, but especially in recommendations, like Spotify will actually introduce me to new artists, whereas
Yep.
Apple will not. The only way I ever am introduced to anything new on Apple is on their human curated playlists, where if I happen to see that they've added something, for a new thing, and I go, oh, I don't know who this
Yeah.
is. And I go,
Yeah.
oh shit, this is really good. But then that didn't come to me. Like I had to seek that out. And that's human
Mhm.
curation, right? Whereas Spotify, like Discover Weekly, will give me like
Every time.
bangers. And
Every week I
and
find new stuff.
Definitely, right? And even the autoplay stuff will introduce me to like I'll be listening and like, "Oh, who is this?" And I'll be like, "Oh, okay, I've heard of this artist, but I didn't ever listen to them before, and I like this," right? So, yeah, I feel like Plex, I think, is like having like they're always having business model problems because, it's hard to make money when essentially you are,
Your
propagating.
business is pirating.
Correct, and you're trying to pretend like it's not, but it is, and, like, we all know that it is, and I'm like in my case, a lot of times, I'm like, I legally own many of these movies and TV shows, but it is more convenient to have them in the format that I have them in, right? And then you obviously want your friends to have it, but, like, I feel like this is an area where Plex, especially if they did ratings and whatnot, like, could really offer up great recommendations and stuff if they were able to kind of, use that kind of thing, like, they would have really good insights into that, but
That would be so cool.
but I also understand that they probably don't wanna get too into that, A, because their users would freak out and have freaked out anytime they were even like, "Oh, you're watching this," sharing what you're watching with your friends, which, to be clear, I don't really love that feature. I turned that off immediately. I was like, "I don't need people to see what I'm watching." Like, if I wanted to
Yeah.
share, great, but I don't want that auto on. It's like it's also
Yeah.
like the Spotify listening thing. I'm like, "Uh-uh. No, 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 no. You don't need to know how many times I listened to this song in a row." Like,
How
that's
many
family
hundreds
business.
of times?
Right, that's family business. Like, this is you don't need, like my, like, weirdness does not need to be your whole thing. And I think with the content that I'm watching is even more personal, right? Like,
Just
because
just as a side note, that's all public for me. If you go to brettterpstra.com/soundtrack, you
mhm,
can see what I'm listening to, but my script will, if I listen to a track repeatedly, it only shows it once, but if you
nice.
hover over it,
Oh, you can
it'll
see how many
say,
times?
like 144
That's
plays.
wild. Which is awesome, and again, like, if you wanna share that, I'm, like, not opposed to it, and I might even be interested in doing something like that myself. What I am opposed to is being like, "Okay, if I wanna, like, let people service that on my own listening page, great." But I don't want them to just be able to click on my profile, any random person, and be like, "Oh, this is what Christina's listening to right now." Like, fuck that, uh-uh. Um, but, like and I feel kinda the same way about, like, Plex. Like, I might actually enjoy a slash now feature, like, this is what I'm watching, this is what I'm listening to, whatever. But I also turn that stuff off on Steam. I'm like, "No, you don't need to see how many hours I've been playing Stardew Valley."
You
Right?
know where it
Or
kills me is on my what's Facebook's or Meta's
Instagram?
goggles.
The
No,
Oculus.
Oculus. On my Oculus, like for a while it was sharing how much time I was spending in different apps. And I have one that I literally only use for porn.
Right, right,
And so I was getting
right.
questions from friends who are like, "Hey, what are you doing with because they were like, he's spending a lot of time there. It must be a good app.
Right.
And
Right. No,
I'm an honest guy. I
you
admitted
are. No,
exactly what I
totally.
was doing with it, but then I shut
Absolutely.
off that fucking sharing feature.
Absolutely. Well, no, that's the thing, right? Is I'm like, I don't need people to know like what I'm watching or what I'm listening to. You know what I mean? Because yeah, because sometimes yes, we are adults, and like people, and I'm like, A, I don't want to share that, and B, like I don't want you to know that, right? And I will go this further. I don't want to know what you're doing, right? Like all power to you, but I don't actually when I see this, like I don't actually want to know that my friend was watching porn on their Plex or on their Oculus or
Yep.
whatever. Like
Yeah.
do it. I love that for you. I don't actually want
Yep.
to I don't need to know this. And you know, I've seen that on Steam too, where people like I'll see like their sex games and I'm like, cool, awesome. Really did not need to know that,
Yeah.
right? Like
Good for you. Good for you. Didn't need to know about it.
I didn't need to know about your sex simulator, which is like awesome. That's like happy for you. But like, no, the same way, like you don't need to know that I've spent like 600 hours playing The Sims. Like these are just things that we don't need to like unless we choose to share. We need to do.
Yeah. Agreed.
I know we're coming up on gratitude, but I did want to mention real briefly. This is kind of a sad and weird segue, but Bill Atkinson, a computing pioneer, died, and he was the creator of Mac Paint and HyperCard, and the whole he was able to figure out how to make windows overlap onto one another. And the quick draw framework, you know, for the Mac, which was like a massive thing. He created kind of like the modern, like kind of like dithering
Yeah. We
algorithm.
owe a lot to him.
We owe a ton to him, and I don't think I ever met him, but I obviously was like aware of him, and like I don't know, like HyperCard alone like is a direct reason why like I got into computers and building
Yeah.
stuff because like I went HyperCard to the web and when I was in elementary school, and so like you know thoughts to his
We
family,
I
but
should
what a great legacy.
I should ask Sal Seguin for a quote about Bill Atkinson passing.
Yeah,
I bet I bet I bet that would make a good blog post.
I
An
bet it would.
interview with Sal Seguin about Bill Atkinson.
Totally, totally. Andy Hertzfeld's folklore.org, which is basically just in a kind of a hibernated state now, but it's still like archived, which has like all the stories about the development of the original Macintosh. There are a ton of you know Bill Atkinson stories in there. And I was watching this video. I'll put it in the show notes yesterday that somebody edited together, like some of the first demos from the first Mac, and like seeing like Bill show off Mac Paint to people and like hearing the applause. I mean, it was such a fucking good demo,
Oh,
and it's
if
just
you
so
have a link
incredible.
to that, add that to the show
Yeah,
notes. That
I'm
would
going
be
to.
good.
Yeah, I'm going to. Because it was so cool to see, and it was also wild just like looking back and like seeing how young all those guys were, and the one female member of the dev team were when they you know when the Mac came out, and just freaking like unbelievable talent level. But
Yeah.
he his demo of the Mac Paint is so good. And everybody's applauding, and then he passes it off to the guy who did Mac Right, and that guy like takes a second to say, you know, Mac Paint is great, but like without Quick Draw or whatever Bill's Quick Draw, like none of us would actually be up here. None of this would be possible. And
Yeah.
it was just such a really nice um like pure kind of moment of like this guy's friend being like, no, like I'm excited to show up what I'm showing off, but you know, like props to my friend Bill. It was really, really nice.
That's awesome. Speaking of supercuts, and we don't have to talk about this at all, but I will put it in the show notes. There was someone put together a complete playlist of every video ever shown on MTV's Headbangers Ball.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it is quite the trip down memory lane. It's kind of fascinating, but I know that's not for everybody, but for me, I grew up on
Yeah.
Headbangers Ball on
I
my pirated cable running into the secret TV I had in the closet in my bedroom.
That's wild. I mean, I remember Headbangers Ball. I was much more of like I guess 120 minutes person.
Yeah.
If I had to pick, and even then I was late 120 minutes because I was a little bit too young for all of that. But like I remember like the mythos of that, and that's awesome. That's so cool that they did that because like because that was like an institution, and
Yeah. It was.
I
I
spent
mean, like the crossover between Headbangers Ball and Beavis and
oh
Butthead
yeah.
was
Well, and that's what I
intense.
watched. I loved Beavis and Butthead,
Yeah.
and I was much older when I realized kind of like what they were kind of like making fun of and whatnot, the music videos. But like I liked the little sketches. Like the music video commentary was funny, but like a lot of it was for stuff that I had no idea what it was or anything. And I loved Beavis and Butthead. I thought it was just the funniest stuff. I was like in third and fourth grade, and I just really loved it. But I spent like my childhood and like adolescence, frankly, as well. Like and then into college, like I just it was MTV and VH1, like, it was, like, those 2 networks. Well, and then the E network too, and the E network started up and started getting bigger. It was, like, those 3 things, but, like, but especially, like, MTV and VH1, like, I would just, like, watch, like, basically on, like, a running thing. Like, I was thinking about this the other day because, Pr0n did a cover of Heart's Barracuda, and it's good, like, it was really good. She killed it, but it made me, like, wanna go back and, like, watch original Heart stuff, and then I was like,
Uh,
"Okay, how did I get into Heart?" Because they were not a band really by the time I was aware of music, like, they would already kind of reached their peak and were gone, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, the VH1 behind the music," and fortunately, like, 3 months ago, because a lot of these things get taken down very quickly, somebody did upload the entire, like, 45-minute, like, behind the music of Heart,
nice.
and I was like, "Man, yeah," because they were like, they were like Fleetwood Mac, like, their drama is like Fleetwood Mac, but, like, with sisters, which honestly makes it even messier, right?
Yeah.
Like, the whole
Right.
thing, right? So, yeah.
Have you ever heard Typo Negative? Are you familiar
Yes,
with Typo
I
Negative?
am.
There's I can't remember her name, but there's an opera singer who does like reaction videos to like any kind of musician. She'll do like a reaction and an analysis of the voice and the intonation and then even get into like the lyrical impact and things like that. And she's just like she's this peppy person who had never heard of Typo Negative, but one of her viewers asked her to do a Typo Negative reaction. And it was very charming watching her first reaction to, and this was like during Typo Negative's like vampire phase when they were really into
Right.
like the kind of the vampire mythos. And she was like, "Oh, I get this." His like deep voice. He's got this deep
That's
voice,
awesome.
and he's like 7 feet tall, and he's playing a double bass like it's an electric bass, like holding it up, and she like listening to her analyze it, she was really into it. So as a result, I was like, oh, I got to go back and listen to Typo Negative more, and I learned in the process that there was this album called Origin of the Feces
Mhm.
that was supposed to be a live album. And I learned in my kind of deep dive into Typo Negative that it was not at all a live album. It was a studio recording into which they interjected crowd noises and glasses clinking and people booing and like made it sound like a really poor live performance that made you feel bad for the fucking band. Uh, but it was all very intentional. Anyway, like
That's
that
awesome.
there's a like that guy had some lyrics, especially I think his previous band was a lot less PC and they really pushed the limits of like fascist Nazi kind of lyrics. He was like a New York Jew who I don't even know where it all came from, but I think he was just trying to push people's buttons. But
Mhm.
there's some questionable stuff that Typo Negative and Peter Steele did. So I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, I'm so into these guys, but that some of the sounds on especially on their later albums when they went a little more like pop metal, when it was like super melodic and heavy at the same time, they kind of led they invented goth metal. Like that didn't exist before Typo Negative. So I mean you gotta give them some props.
Yeah, for sure. No, you definitely need to give them props, and I'd like to see that reaction video. That sounds good. Um,
I'll see
uh,
if I can find that.
yeah, I put it in the show notes. One thing, just to circle back when you're talking about movie recommendations thing, I happened to search GitHub to see because Letterboxd does have an API, but apparently it's sort of private. But I came across this project that Sam Lerner created a few years ago, but it looks like he's still updating. That is called Letterboxd Recommendations, and he basically scrapes publicly accessible Letterboxd data and creates a movie recommendations model with it that can generate recommendations when provided with a Letterboxd username. So the whole concept is if you've rated a lot of movies on Letterboxd, you can give it your username and it can then give you recommendations based on your ratings compared to others.
Okay, cool.
So that seems like that's exactly what we were kind of talking about.
Yeah, I
s-
I
s-
would have to actually go in and rate some movies, but yeah,
for
that
sure.
is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And you might even be able to do something otherwise. And then I put in our show notes, I put like the link to the front facing thing that you can do, but it also has like
And
a
the
GitHub
GitHub,
project
yeah.
because he has it, you can run it on your own. And then he also has a Kaggle data set that's up to date with his latest crawl. So you can crawl yourself if you
Cool.
want to do things and whatnot. So you might even be able to like you could probably modify it based on some of those parameters where you could even be there'd be a way to modify this where you could be like enter in a movie and get recommended movies based on other things, right? Like there'd be a way to
Yeah.
probably accomplish the
Yeah, I'll
same
play
thing that
with
he's
it.
doing. So
Sounds like a fun thing to do while I'm unemployed.
yeah, I mean, look, that could be whatnot, and it's interesting because I'm now like looking through just like oh, and this is cool too. Somebody has created a way to connect your letterbox list to Radar, which is like the front end for Usenet to download content for your
Nice.
Plex. I'm seeing all kinds of information and you're just searching letterboxed on GitHub. So that's uh
Nice.
that's pretty cool.
All right. Cool. Should we do our gratitude?
We should. Do you have one? Because I've got
I
a
do.
okay, go
I
for it.
do. So I can't I've lost track of what we've already talked about, but my pick this week is Flotato. There are multiple single site browser apps out there that
Yep.
will turn something like, Facebook into its own isolated web browser that doesn't give data to anything else
Right.
and makes it so that I can separate my Facebook time from anything else. I have one for Facebook, one for LinkedIn. I'm not on the machine that I actually run these. I have one for Blue Sky.
Mhm.
It actually runs deck.blue. Um, and so all my social media sites get their own Flotato web app. And I like Flotato because it's super bare bones and super lightweight. And the apps it makes are just wrappers that that are basically little sandbox wrappers that take up about a megabyte and they load instantly and they don't have a lot of frills. They don't do a good job of like notifications and badges and things like that.
Right.
If that's what you want, you want to go with something more like Unity or Coherence
Right.
X.
Or
But
or or
Flotato, it
or you want to use in Chrome, and Safari's gotten better with this, but I
right.
don't use Safari.
Safari does too, yeah.
But no, but Chrome, like if apps can be installed as a progressive web app, then
Yeah,
that does a lot of similar things. Not to
yeah,
the way that it will do like what this does, where it'll isolate your data,
right.
but if you want
Yeah,
notifications
no,
and
it
like a
does a good
separate,
job.
yeah,
If you just wanna separate out that kind of
right,
browsing, yeah. Um, so single site browsers are awesome. Flotato is lightweight, fast, and, for what I need it to do, it is the easiest. Like, it creates like, if you punch in a URL and hit save, instantly you've got your SSB. So I'm a fan. I can't remember if I paid for it. I think I paid for it. It was like a
yeah. It looks like it.
fee.
Yeah, it looks like they have like a basic version, and then there's like a pro version that's $20. Um, I will note actually, and this is kind of a sad, I guess, update, but I might have mentioned this on one of the episodes that you weren't on, but I'll mention it again just because I'm reminded of it. So Mac Updater, which is an app that we've talked about a lot of times,
Yeah.
That developer has announced that he is going to basically be discontinuing the app as of
What?
January. Yeah, I
Oh
guess he's not
man.
making enough money off of it or whatever. He's offering it for sale potentially or licensing if people want to do it. I d- I don't have the means to be able to actually maintain it.
Yeah,
But
someone
I'd be
should pick
interested.
that up though.
But
I
I'd be interested
literally
in.
have that app open on my desktop right now.
Yeah, totally.
Oh,
And
that's a
so
bummer.
yeah, and so I think that it's such a good app. I mean, look, I'll put this out there on the show. This is a weird gratitude, but I am very I have a lot of gratitude for this app. If there are some people who would potentially want to like go in with me on like looking at like how much it would be to buy this app, I mean, I would be interested in like I could do things on a business side because I do feel like the price he was selling it for was probably, too low. And I don't know how big the market would be for people who'd be willing to pay, $30 a year or whatever for app updates, but I don't feel like it's zero. So if there are people who are listening to our show who might be interested in pursuing with me, like what it would cost to do this, or if I don't have to be involved at all, this is just something you feel like you want to do, you should reach out to him. But I don't know. I feel
Yeah.
like this is the sort of app that we need to, keep around.
Yeah, I agree. It's so useful.
It's so useful.
I'm
The only
and
thing
he
I can
doesn't
imagine is.
charge nothing for it.
Yeah, but he basically does. It's like the pricing right now is, it's free to scan only. The standard edition is $3.90 a person. The pro edition is $10, $9
Oh,
rather.
no, I thought it was more than that. Yeah, it should definitely be more than that.
And I feel like it should be a
That's a
I
$30 app and possibly a subscription
no,
app
I think
since
it's a
it's
subscription. I think
yeah.
it's a $30 a year subscription is what I think it is. I mean, maybe 50, but I think 30 is probably the right thing. And that way, and the reason is because it's not free to be able to, there's real bandwidth costs and having to ping
Yeah.
and like store like
I
the
use
apps that you're
that app
scanning.
every day. I would be interested. I would back Christina on this. I don't necessarily want to maintain the app, but I would pitch in on keeping it alive in whatever capacity I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he basically, he expects it. He just says, Mac Updater 3 does require server support and our daily maintenance to keep working. Expect support until, January 1st, 2026. So, because he's made, kind of he said, take it over if your company wants to either continue Mac Updater or enter the app updating market, get in touch about the possibility of acquiring, whether it's infrastructure and, maintenance infrastructure, or if you want to license their tech. Um, like I don't know. I remember what
We
happened with
could
Mac
we could
Update.
wait it out. We could wait it out, and if no, like, larger company steps up, I bet he would eventually give it away for free.
Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't want to pay nothing for it. Like I don't feel like that's fair.
No,
Um,
but then it would be up to us to be like, "No, we think it's worth this," and we give them that.
yeah, I'm just saying if there are people out there who, because my whole thing is like I don't have the skills to maintain and keep it like running and updated. I would have skills to potentially like come up with like a business model and figure that sort of stuff out. But um because I feel like there are a lot of things there. Honestly, maybe we should talk to the setup folks because this feels like this would be, granted, they want everybody to go through their store, but this could be like a complimentary thing,
Yeah.
for apps that aren't
Yeah.
in setup, right? Like, I don't know, just spitballing out there, but yeah. Immense gratitude and thanks for Mac Updater for being a real one over the years, and if anybody out there is in a position to help, or if you want to potentially, you know, um, if you have the technical skills and you potentially want to go in on something like this, like me, and I'm not, and I don't even know if I don't know what he's charging, so I don't even know like if I'm in the financial position to be able to like make a real like run of it, right?
Yeah.
But this is one of those apps where I like look at it and I'm like, fuck, this is actually really good,
We
and I
we
don't
would
want this to
look
go
into
away.
it with you.
Yeah,
Give us a shout. Give us a shout.
yep.
All right. So do you have a pick, or is
Um,
that your
I
pick?
think that's actually gonna be my pick, actually. I was gonna come up with something else, then I was thinking about it, I was like, "No, I actually think that, that it's that." And then, the other thing that I will, call out is again, like, the Sam Lerner's, Letterboxd movie recommendations thing, which, like, that GitHub project looks pretty fun, so
All right. Well, what we did about an hour and a half almost.
Hmm.
That's fun.
Yeah,
Just the two of us. This was an OG episode.
this was like a very classic ADHD, like OG, overtired, pop culture heavy. Yeah, it was good stuff.
We're working on some more guests. Hopefully Jeff will be back, but you get what you get when you listen to Overtired.
You do. So we miss Jeff, of course, but I'm glad to still talk with you, Brad, and get some sleep.
Get some sleep.
The system is going down now.